SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
This is Gerard Gibert, and thank you for listening to MidDays here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Midday SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this Hump Day. Welcome back to Hump Day there, Rhino. All right, the continuing saga of Cracker Barrel Gate. Where are we now? My head's spinning like Linda Blair in The Exorcist. I can't keep up with it.
As far as I know, they're going back to the old logo. They're still going to go through with some renovations in locations that really need it. And the CEO still somehow has a job.
I'm trying to think of the word to describe her to be somewhat respectful and exhibit a bit of decorum. That was just dumb.
It's one of two things. It's either the actions of a bumbling buffoon, or it's as genius as the Coca-Cola people with their whole New Coke and Coke Classic.
Agree.
But it's going to take a whole lot of PR to convince people that this was all in the plans to begin with.
Orchestrated, contrived, for attention. No doubt, we've talked more about Cracker Barrel in this country in the last week than we have in the last 50 years, however long they've been around.
Yeah, I mean, even Trump pointed that out and talking about how it's a $1 billion ad buy that if they use it right, it could work well.
He did say that, and he's right. We're all talking about it. It's all over the media. She said, of course, did the CEO, we said we would listen, and we have. Well, you didn't before you made that change, because now it's being revealed that there's at least one member of their board of directors that said, don't do this, right? That objected to it and warned about the consequences, was right. But she says, we thank our guests for sharing your voices and love for Cracker Barrel. We said we would listen, and we have. Our new logo is going away, and our old timer will remain. Uncle Herschel, right? They refer to it.
Yep.
At Cracker Barrel, it's always been and always will be about serving up delicious food, warm welcomes, and the kind of country hospitality that feels like family. Hell, they just should have made that an ad. That's actually a pretty decent message.
They could have saved on whatever they spent to have that random pop-up Cracker Barrel in New York City.
That's right.
With the line dancing and they weren't playing washers; they were playing cornhole.
So, and it's really unclear to me whether or not this was a move to appease the left-wing woke zealots, and many people are criticizing as such a move. Now, there's no doubt the Bud Light transgender garbage. Is there any doubt whatsoever that was just stumming their nose up? Look what we're going to do. We're going to parade a tranny out to promote this product that I doubt is consumed by all 10,000 trainees, whatever, in the country. That was super dumb, and it cost them. You would think they'd learn their lesson. At a minimum, wouldn't you think that they would go out and talk to their regular customers? Hey, what would you think if we changed our logo? Because it was pretty clear what they thought after they did it. They expressed their discontent. That's just market research 101. You run a company that's got 600 locations and 70,000 employees. Clearly, you've got the resources to do that sort of stuff. You think you do a little market testing, as they say, before you just make such an abrupt move. Now,
if they try to spin this as a weird way of market testing, somebody's head's got to roll, because it just, if it was market testing, it got out of hand for them way too fast.
It certainly didn't work like it's supposed to. That's for sure. Now, my wife had an observation, and I think it's fair that because this is her observation, Rhino, I can't get accused of misogynism, though I probably will be no matter what, just for sharing this. But my wife said, this was a situation where perhaps as a female, as a CEO, she was just trying to prove something. And I think it's largely true that, and it's not a bad thing necessarily, that females in our country, and I don't think there's any question that there was certainly a time when we just couldn't comprehend, a female running a big company like this. That's completely not the case anymore. I can think of, GM, right, as a great female CEO. I think IBM, and there are numerous others. So there's no question they're more than qualified. That their sex doesn't have anything to do with it. I'm not going to say gender, because that's a whole different ballgame, right? I'm talking about their biological, DNA-based, assigned at birth by God sex here. So, no doubt. But she said, maybe sometimes females feel like it's still a man's world, and they got to prove something. And they get in that kind of position, they've got to go out and do something to just make it look like, I'm going to show them. And she thought maybe that was at play here. It's a logical.
I wouldn't even consider conclusion. That being misogynistic. It's that happens at every level in corporate hierarchy when a new manager or a new person in charge shows up. You got about a 50-50 chance they're going to screw something up just because they want to prove they're the boss.
You're absolutely right. I'm going to show them who's in charge. You're right.
I won't paint with a broad enough brush and say that happens every time, because I've had instances where new management comes into a situation and it's like, this is even better than I thought it could be.
Yeah, that's right.
But there are the times where it's like, what are you doing? You've been here 30 seconds and you've messed everything up.
No, you're completely right in that, and it's just maybe to send a message, just throw something out there and make sure people are paying attention. You're sort of asserting your position, but it's a reasonable conclusion on her part that that's what was going on here. Now, over there at Bud Light, you remember that lunatic? That was the marketing person that convinced them to do that. That was an ideological move. I mean, most of them are when they do this kind of stuff, right? It's all about the adherence.
I think Jaguar is the most damaged example at this point, because Bud Light's, they're still selling Bud Light. Jaguar, I think they had a quarter where they sold 3 cars.
Yeah, so,
it just went off a cliff.
I remember talking about that on the show. Remind me, what happened exactly with Jaguar?
They had this ad with these bright colors and
that's right,
ambiguous people doing strange gyrations that they considered dance, and it didn't really seem to fit anything that they were selling other than, look at us, this is us being bright and flamboyant.
Yeah, I remember that, and it certainly didn't project kind of the image one would want to see if they're thinking about spending that kind of money on a vehicle, because they're rare. You don't see a lot of them. They're unique to some degree, but there's a bit of a status symbol associated with them.
Yeah, you'd think you would emphasize the luxury or the sportiness.
Yeah.
It didn't feature anything except for one model of, I don't even think it's production yet. I think it's still in the prototype phasing. And it's like, what exactly are y'all selling here?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So that, again, they didn't do that, nor did Bud Light, to sell more of their product. They did that to make a political statement. And that's when companies get in trouble. And it backfires on them. So CEO Julie Massino, she got on the phone with investors, it is reported, and unveiled the details of a strategic transformation plan her board of directors had approved. And the first of 5 pillars in the plan would be refining and evolving the brand across all touch points. Oh, that's some fancy words there. Translation is, we ain't selling enough stuff in here, and we got to come up with something to put butts in the seats. Plenty of comfortable seats in these restaurants. Their fundamental problem is, well, you're shaking your head. You don't like the hard...
It's all wooden chairs. I know some people would not consider that a comfortable seat.
Okay. They need the tails in the seats ordering and spending money. That was their problem. We're stepping aside for a break. It's Bryan Hadad at 10:35. It's football season. And also we got Dr. Jennifer Bryan later on in the program. Stay with us. This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Gerard Gibert. He keeps his classified documents right where they belong. Inside a Journey record jacket from the 1980s. Gerard Gibert. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
The road is long, with a many winding tongue that leads us to who knows where, who knows where.
That's Alan Clark on lead vocals, the Hollies. Man, I'm feeling old. He's 83. Gee whiz. There's, what a great tune. Great video of them performing that live at some of those old shows where you would have the kind of current day rock and roll performing artists and all the youngsters enjoying the music, dance and sway and so forth. What a great voice. Alan Clark. Man, 83 years old. Unbelievable. On the C Spire text line, the 662. By the way, the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. Bud Light disliked their customers. Can't do that. Yeah, there's no doubt. They alienated their core customers. Now, let's be honest, Rhino. If you're selling a product that's kind of targeted at the transgender population, which I don't think is enough to sustain said product, even if you cast your net across the nation, right? Now, somebody's probably saying you're wrong about that, Gerard. You got this. Okay, fine. But just in general, if you're selling beer, the profit you make on a can of beer, you got to sell a lot. It's a volume business. You're not going to do that just by targeting one demographic that's that small. That's what was dumb about that. Wait, what about the good old boys that drink Bud Light? You just pissed them all off. That's just dumb. That may be one of the biggest marketing blunders in the history of marketing blunders. This Cracker Barrel deal, it's right up there. And there are others, of course, that we've witnessed through the years.
But I called it on Friday.
You did. I agree.
That this would all be blown over by this Friday. Well, it's Wednesday, and it's already losing steam.
You're right. You were absolutely right on that. And even the president weighed in on it, as you indicated. But looks like it's back to the old deal. So here's what will be interesting to see. Now, they lost 12% in their stock when they announced this deal because everybody freaked out. It's up 1%. So they got a ways to go to recover. The question is is this going to drive traffic to the restaurants? Because fundamentally, they do have a problem. Their business is way down. Over the same period of the last few years, McDonald's, surprisingly, sales up 50%. Same-store sales. Cracker Barrel, down 50%.
And McDonald's is only going to gain more ground because they're rolling out lower prices and an attempt to return to a semblance of a value menu.
And that's how you get new customers, not changing the famous golden arches. Can you imagine how people would freak out if they came out and announced, yeah, we're getting rid of those golden arches, and they're going to put, I don't know, something else. I can't even comprehend what that might be.
I don't think they would, simply because they lean so far into nostalgia for their marketing at this point.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like right now, their big thing is basically an adult Happy Meal with stuff in the box from Gen X's and Millennials' childhoods.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
McDonald Land Meal, I think it is.
Yeah, I think you're right. But so that's fine, though. I think that's wise marketing there, right? Get the ice cream machine fixed.
But that's one thing about Cracker Barrel that's different than McDonald's is they both sell you on nostalgia.
It's true.
But look at I'm not trying to be morbid, but look at the number of Gen X and Millennials that are still buying McDonald's compared to the people that have nostalgia for the tchotchkes on the wall at Cracker Barrel.
I would agree.
There's fewer of them, and the number's shrinking by the day at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. But I don't think they can survive on, like I said, just any single sort of demographic like that, not 600 stores across the country. I think when you're in a sort of horizontal generic, everybody has to eat is the point. So now you may not like the type food that they serve, and that's fine as well. I find the food to be pretty good. I kind of miss the one that used to be around the corner here. The breakfast was especially good and reasonably priced. The service was good. I mean, I didn't really take too much about entering the little general store there. I mean, I would look at the stuff. You can't help but do so because you're routed through there and out of there, right? But it's not my cup of tea, I'll say that. But there's some stuff that I said, yeah, I remember that when I was a kid, for example.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of neat. But the
little wire with the red wheel and the magnets that you hold up and it spins around. You hold it down and it spins around.
I played with those. I mean, we didn't have much to play with back then, you know.
About the only place you can find them to buy on a shelf is at the Cracker Barrel.
Tinker Toys and what were they called? Pickup sticks or pixie sticks?
Pickup sticks, yeah.
I remember that as well.
The little sliding wood box.
Yep, old maid cards. So, and then of course they got the blankets and other sort of little household items.
Blanket checkers.
Yeah.
Giant checkers.
That's true. Yeah. So, your money, let's take a look at that. The Dow's up 128. The NASDAQ up 26. It's a big day on Wall Street. That's because NVIDIA, you know those guys, chip maker, they're going to be announcing their earnings after the bell today. And they are, of course, kind of the poster child for the AI revolution in this country. Surging sales due to growing demand, and just every quarter it's another one like, wow. And that's the problem, of course, is that the stock is extremely expensive on a price-to-earnings ratio basis. And that's because investors expect quarter after quarter to just be a blowout relative to the last one. And we'll see. I said the last couple of days, Rhino, if they come out today, it's going to be the guidance everybody will be focused on. If they come out with guidance that says, yeah, we see this trend continuing based on our pipeline of deals, et cetera, then the markets are going to respond favorably. If they come out and say, yeah, we see that our future sales opportunity flow pipeline is moderating, I think there'll be a sell-off. I think the expectation is that it's just straight skyward, and that's kind of where we are. But that's anytime you have a stock that's just rising so rapidly based on the performance, which just, again, is quarter after quarter just through the roof, big-time increases. But that's what's going on. And then I
learned something today.
What's that?
On the C Spire text line, Jerry from Tupelo.
Yeah.
The toy I was describing is called a Wheelo.
Okay. I actually remember that.
I had no idea what the real name for it was.
I remember that now that you mention it. Yeah. And back in my day, Rhino, we'd buy our toys from the Woolworth or the TG&Y or something like that. They didn't have Walmarts, and they'd have little toy departments, in there. I used to build plastic models, loved to build model airplanes and stuff.
You're just making the argument that I grew up at the greatest time. Because I grew up at the time of Toys R Us. Your generation didn't have Toys R Us. The new generation didn't have Toys R Us. My generation had Toys R Us.
Correct. And that was pretty cool. But it seemed like that of course, they're gone. Or they reorganized. I can't remember.
Toys R Us?
Yeah.
They reorganized to online, but it's not the same.
Okay. But the thing about Toys R Us, it was a little bit of toys and a lot of bit of clothes and
once video games took over, a lot of electronics.
That's true. And that's where you went for Christmas to buy your electronics. But they had a bunch of clothes, a bunch of just baby and infant, toddler type products. I mean, that's where we bought our strollers, my wife and I, for our kids. You had like a parking lot full of stroller selections back then. Today I should say, it's NVIDIA, CrowdStrike, Snowflake, two technology companies as well. Agilent Technologies, HP, also announcing after the bell, I believe. Tomorrow we're going to get GDP data, first revision for the second quarter, and then we'll get initial jobless claims, some more earnings reports. One that'll be interesting to watch is Affirm Holdings. Those guys, that's the buy now, pay later, one of them. And, of course, we're seeing now that a lot of households are using buy now, pay later for their groceries. That just seems a little scary to me. I'm going to eat today and pay you over the next 2 months for it, right?
I will gladly pay you tomorrow for a hamburger today.
I think it was Tuesday. I will gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today. That was Wimpy from Popeyes. What a great character Wimpy was. I can just laugh and see it with his eyes closed, walking around, looking for burgers, right? We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio with Bryan Hadad. Stay with us.
Mississippi. Most to Mississippians. Gerard Gibert. Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
I didn't know Jimi Hendrix played Hail State. Wow. Where did you dig that up from? Oh, my God.
A decade-old YouTube video.
Okay. Well, who's the performer there?
I want to say, what was the guy's name? I have to go back and look.
On the guitar. Okay. Well, we did that, of course, to welcome our good friend Bryan Hadad, the co-host of Sports Talk Mississippi, and, of course, the wildly successful Thunder and Lightning.
I like that. I like that.
What's going on there, Bryan?
I'm doing well. All right. Last time I was here, you promised we would talk about the economy or whatever. When next time I came on, what are we doing here today?
No, man, it's football season.
All right.
So we're going to have to talk about that. But first, what about this celebrity roast for our good friend, great Mississippian restaurateur, Robert St. John?
They are really stretching the word celebrity. on this one. And when they called me and asked if I wanted to be a part of this, like locally well known at best. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Robert's, like as you mentioned, great guy, great Mississippian, a guy who does a lot for us here in this state. And so it should be a fun evening. I went back and watched some of last year's roast of Wyatt Emmerich, and I was just like, oh, they're all wearing coats and ties. Great. Fantastic. That's exactly how I wanted to dress. So I'll try to keep it reasonably civil, I guess, when I get down there in a couple of weeks.
Where's this happening?
Oh, I don't even know off the top of my head.
It's happening locally, right?
Yeah,
here in Jackson.
I'll have to come down to Jackson.
Yeah.
So I'll be there. I'll be there where you're sitting right there. I'll be sitting there.
Well,
in about 2 weeks.
Well, come on by and see us. We always look forward to that.
Absolutely.
So most important question, there's been some kind of shifting around, of course. You got Richard Cross hosting the morning show here.
Yeah.
I just want to know, am I still your favorite Rebel?
Yeah, that ranking hasn't changed. Rankings are a very fluid situation. You go up, you go down, but sometimes you're just locked in. And that's where Gerard Gibert remains at all times. You would have to do something heinous to be knocked out of that perch, I tell you.
Well, I'm honored, my good friend. So, all right, man, big football game coming up Saturday, Mississippi State and Southern Miss. I was on the beautiful campus of Southern Miss yesterday, helping my fraternity brothers with Rush, closing out Rush down there. I ride by the campus a lot, but don't spend a lot of time inside the campus of Southern Miss. It's really a very nice campus, and the thing I observed in particular, Bryan, is that all the buildings seem like they're brand new. I mean, they're just spectacular. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, when you drive past, you're like, man, this is a really bright, shiny campus for whatever reason. Yeah. It's a great campus, and looking forward to being there Saturday. I have to leave Starkville pretty early, but I'll be there at the Rock for this one. And like you said, Gerard, big game for both teams. Two teams that they want to bounce back from what they did a season ago. Yeah,
and you know what? I was on campus, of course, and with the group there. Of course, they kind of thumb their nose a little bit, tongue in cheek, because of my Ole Miss connection. But of course, they had to rub it in. You guys won't play us.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, Bryan, when I was in school, and that was a long time ago, we did play Southern Miss, and they beat us like a redheaded stepchild, as they say.
Ole Miss said enough of that.
Woo! So homecoming in the rain. I remember one year they just beat us up and down the field,
and I think it's going to stay that way, Gerard. Keith Carter's been asked about that. Ole Miss does not have any interest in playing Southern Mississippi. Mississippi State. They play this one, and then there's another home and away scheduled for 2030-31.
Okay.
Between these two schools. But now that being said, with the news of last week, with the SEC moving to 9 games, I don't know how those games will happen or not.
Yeah,
because
that makes it a little more difficult to get that in the schedule.
When you look at you're playing an uneven number of conference games. So you're going to have some years where you have 5 home conference games and some years where you have 4.
Oh, yeah.
And those years where you have 4, you can't give away a road game to a non-conference opponent if you want to have 7 home games.
Good point.
So I don't know how the schedule is going to look in those years, but if that game at Hattiesburg is in a year where State only has 4 conference home games, I can't see it being played, to be honest.
Okay, interesting. So tell us, what are your expectations for the game?
Yeah, man, this has been one of the toughest games to prognosticate in my time of doing this, just because the two teams are so different. You're talking about, between the two rosters, 120 different players from a season ago. I mean, Southern Mississippi is not the team. This is not the same team that went 1-11 last year. This is not the same Mississippi State team that went 2-10. It's really different at USM because they have a brand new coaching staff. State kept the same guys in place.
Mm-hmm.
Normally you would just look at it and go, okay, it's an SEC team versus a Sun Belt team. The SEC team is going to win and win big. But after what happened last year at State with Toledo, I can't just sit here and be like, oh, yeah, it's a gimme game. No problem. They're going to win easily. There's a scenario where State goes down there and dominates them. But there's a lot of scenarios where this game is very close, and it's not out of the realm of possibility that USM could find a way to win. I think State will win. I would pick State to win. I would probably pick State to cover. I think it's a a 12.5, 11.5 point spread. So State can win by 2 touchdowns and cover that. But do I go down there just completely locked in, confident of victory? Absolutely not.
Okay. All right, so then share your expectations for the Bulldogs for the remainder of the season.
You know, I'm going to know what this team is really early. You know, if they go down there, if it's 14-0 State at the end of the first quarter, I'm going to feel really good about State's chances to possibly get into a bowl game, right? If they're in controlling the game, both sides of the ball, you're going to feel really good. If this game is close, I'm going to tell you that it's going to be a struggle for Mississippi State this year. From a talent perspective, they added a lot, but they're still behind most of the teams they're going to play this year. You know, they play 8 SEC games. The only game where you can look at it and go, there might be more talented is the Arkansas game. They're not as talented as Ole Miss, as Missouri, as Tennessee, Texas, Georgia, Florida, Texas A&M. And I don't know about Arizona State, who, you know, was in the college football playoff a year ago, and they come to Starkville next weekend. So Jeff Lebby's got a big task in front of him. They spent big in the portal. They put together a pretty good class. This, you know, top 20 portal class and a top 20 high school class coming off of a 2-10 season is impressive to me. So if you ask me that question again at halftime on Saturday, I might have a much clearer answer of what it is. As it is right now, I think they're going to struggle, but there's a window there for them to be a bowl team. Okay.
Year. All right. Do you see, Bryan, just in college football in general, this separation, this gap widening between the haves and the have-nots with all the NIL portal stuff, where it's become a money game?
Yeah, in some ways, for sure. I mean, the truth is this, that Georgia and Akron play for the same national championship. It's just silly. Like, there's no chance on planet Earth that Akron is going to win a national championship in college football. And that's true for a lot of schools. So even within the SEC, there's division, right? There's, you know, Mississippi State is spending plenty, but they're not spending what Texas is spending. Yeah, you know, so on and so forth. So I do think that as you want to say, the haves and the have-nots, the power conferences and the group of 6 or whatever you want to call them conferences. You know, I think as the years continue to go by, that gap does continue to widen for sure.
It just seems like it's been turned on its head to a great extent. It's certainly not the way it was when you and I were in school or just a few short years ago. Yeah. What now is encouraged and accepted and required was totally illegal, and it would get you kicked out of the sport. It's
you know, it was all done under the table. And what's funny is I feel like a lot of fans, they were okay with it happening under the table. But now that it's out in the open, they don't want to talk about it. It's like, I can't believe we're paying these players. I'm like, guys, we've been paying the players under the table for 5 decades. What are we talking about? But now that it's out in the open, and it's taxable income. The state might benefit from this. Let's go.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that in that respect, but that is absolutely right. Are you hearing, do you think, that people will get disinterested as they consider more that these are not student athletes?
Yeah, I hear that, and then you still see the crowds on the weekend, and the ratings are still super high. If your team is winning, it's impossible not to be excited about them. So I think people like to say that the same way a lot of people were like, oh, I'll never watch the NFL again. Well, what are the ratings for the NFL right now? Yeah. People can't live without football, Gerard. It's what we have to do on the weekend.
Like a drug. I'm here.
Absolutely.
Bryan Hadad, co-host of Sports Talk Mississippi, and also the wildly successful
I like that. Keep saying
it. Appreciate it, Bryan. Always good to see you, man. See you. We're coming right back in the Element Well studio.
With Gerard.
Good for America. Good for fans of justice and truth. Good for us.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
This is what we stand for.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. We are coming at you from the Element Wealth studio. Appreciate you joining us today, middle of the week. Sports Talk Mississippi will be in Oxford at the College Corner off Sisk Avenue in the Oxford Commons tomorrow. Get all your game day gear for the kickoff of the college football season, plus great deals throughout the store. Your home for all the Rebel gear is at College Corner in Oxford. And then it's hard to believe, but the fabulous high school football show here on SuperTalk Mississippi, our coverage and broadcast, kicks off this Friday. You can catch a local game on just about every SuperTalk Mississippi station. Plus, you can stream a ton of games and get up-to-the-minute scores from across the entire state by going to supertalk.fm/high school or by clicking on sports on the SuperTalk Mississippi app. And check out the Farm Bureau Insurance Company scoreboard show. That comes on at 10 p.m. on Friday nights, anywhere you listen to SuperTalk Mississippi. It's coming up, and looks like the weather's going to be reasonably cooperative for the weekend, right? Doesn't look like it's going to be
potentially. It looks like Central
hot.
Mississippi might have to endure a little bit of rain around kickoff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the latest forecast, let's see.
That's Friday,
this
right?
Morning on Friday.
Yeah.
And as of right now, the precipitation, it's still going to be moderate to light well into the football games.
Okay. So we got to be on the lookout for that. But I think it clears out, cools it off a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
After that. So, all right. So we're all ready for that. Football season, man. We'll be talking about that a lot. The president yesterday, he talked about the massive data center, something that's been talked about a lot here in Mississippi, is we are poised to house 3 different data center projects, AWS, of course, in Madison County, followed by an announcement from Compass. They're more of a co-location facility, a builder of data centers, just like Avio. Compass in Lauderdale County, Avio in Rankin County, just announced last week. Yesterday, the president was talking about the AI boom and how the AI boom is going to triple U.S. power demand. The Meta data center in Louisiana looks like that its cost is coming in at $50 billion. $50 billion. And just reading some comments from the company, Meta, as to why they selected that Monroe central, sort of east central area of Louisiana, said we set out looking for a place where we could expand into gigawatts pretty quickly and really get moving within the community on a large plot of land very quickly. So you heard the governor talk about that. We've talked about it here. It's that speed to market, shovel ready. Literally, we got a site. It's ready for you to mobilize the equipment, start digging and pouring concrete. When you can see that, it's in view. You're not thinking about the millions of things you got to do before you get to that point, including, of course, complying with all the regulatory requirements, permitting, etc. If you don't have to worry so much about that and you can fast-track that, streamline that, that's very attractive. And that's what Mississippi and Louisiana have, and some other states as well. It's the deep blue states where that's a big old problem. And it's a hindrance, honestly, to these sorts of projects. Also said, we looked at finding very, very large contiguous plots of land that had access to the infrastructure that we need, the energy that we need, and could move very, very quickly for us. This would be, by the way, one of the largest single user data center, meaning it's being used by one company, that's Meta, for their purpose, ever constructed in the U.S. And the president yesterday, when he was talking about this, he had a prop that showed the data center superimposed over the island of Manhattan. And it it covered 81%, this one facility, this one campus of the island of Manhattan. It's pretty impressive, but that's what's going on. Now, I did a little research on kind of what the power consumption is expected to be throughout this sort of era of data center build-out and explosion over the next 10 years. On the other side of Fox News and SuperTalk News, we're up against the break at the top of the hour. I'll share kind of what I found out, do a little research there. Might surprise you a little bit. Coming right back. Stay with us.
Of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
Welcome to the show that challenges you to think deeply and look beyond political posturing. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It is Middays. It's hour 2 of the program. We're in the Element Wealth studio on this
Hump Day.
Go to myelementwealth.com or call 601-957-6006 to let Element Wealth help you find your balance between income growth and guarantees, especially if you're thinking about or planning for retirement. You need a plan. Give them a call. So, before we went to break, was talking about this Meta data center investment. Meta, of course, the parent company of Facebook, over in Monroe area of Louisiana, not far from where we are right here. And like the AWS project in Madison, announced it's a $10 billion investment, but the company's talking about expanding that to as much as $50 billion. And Zuckerberg actually referred to it as a plant. I guess you could say it's a plant that produces artificial intelligence. And Trump said, what the hell kind of plant is that? Oh, man. But, of course, lots of concerns about consumption of electricity from these data centers that are going up across the country. It's fascinating to me, Rhino, to sit here just thinking back on when we built the data center, very small data center, my company, in 2000. We had a hard time, convincing people this really is a pretty good way to consume services. Of course, you can't do what you can today. The technology didn't exist 25 years ago. But there was a lot of stuff you could do and move to a service provider and consume it through a cloud architecture. The word wasn't even invented then. We called it Application Services Provisioning, ASP, which was a mouthful that wasn't really good from a marketing perspective. We didn't see it going. We never do, right? I mean, you kind of have a feeling, I did, that, this is really going to be the future of how we will consume IT. But remember, this is pre the smartphone. And what a lot of folks may not realize is every time you tap on that phone, you're consuming a cloud service that's coming from a data center. So if you don't like data centers, put your phone down, disconnect from the internet, because it's impossible to receive any value or benefit, honestly, from the connectivity and all the underlying plumbing. I call it the high-tech plumbing, without the data centers that power and support and host and house all of these programs and all of that data. All right, so even the folks in Louisiana, of course, just as there are many in Mississippi, are objecting to this investment, this installation by Meta in the area, and they're concerned about their power rates going up. Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry, he's a big supporter, as you can imagine, of the project. and he's extremely enthusiastic. He said Louisiana isn't just a participant in the AI race, we are leading it. Well, I tell you what there, Governor Landry, so are we here in the great state of Mississippi. Now, Entergy, as you know, is services a good bit of Louisiana, just as they do here in Mississippi. And they are the state's largest utility. And they received approval from regulators, just like Energy Mississippi did, to build, in this case, Rhino, listen to this, it's kind of mind-boggling, 3 new gas-fired electricity plants, natural gas, the common source of fuel to generate electricity. There have been significant advances in gas-powered turbines in the last few years. And the good news is we got a bunch of natural gas in this country, but we're sitting on top of a bunch of it, especially between really across this basin of Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and into Alabama, a ton of it. So they have received approval, has Entergy in Louisiana, to erect electricity plants that will be the size of about 70 football fields. I was blown away by that. 2,250 acres for electricity, for power generation. That's amazing. So a lot, of course, have Louisiana residents have spoken out in opposition of this. They're concerned about environmental impact, polluting infrastructure. What are they talking about when it comes? What kind of polluting infrastructure? Like the emissions from the gas turbines of the power plants? Because the data centers don't have smokestacks on them.
Drinking water.
Okay, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, there's a tinfoil hat conspiracy theory out there that the water runoff from cooling these data centers contain heavy metals and will give you all kinds of maladies.
So I'm going to pass on what the company says, and in this case, it's AWS. I got to believe Meta is pursuing the same strategy, and that is in the AWS project in Madison. It is absolutely true that for some times of the year, the facilities will draw water and introduce that as part of the HVAC system for cooling. Most of the year, however, it's standard air cool. Air comes in from the outside, gets processed through the HVAC system, just like a typical air conditioner does. In this case, though, because they run into times of the year where they need a boost, and they will pull water in. That's absolutely true. Except the AWS facility is going to use wastewater. So this is wastewater that's going to the Beatty's Bluff purification facility that will be diverted, some of it, through a direct line from Beatty's Bluff. I've actually signed the vouchers for that construction for the third party doing that. I think it's like a 2-foot line going from Beatty's Bluff to the facilities in Canton there and also in Ridgeland. And then the technology exists to filter that water, clean that water, use it for the cooling, filter it, clean it further, return it to the Big Black River cleaner than it was when it came in. I mean, that's not rocket science, as they say. That's technology that's been around. It's just that it's on site. So they're doing like their own water purification, which would seem to me would benefit everybody, that process. So there is the company has plans for all of its use of water to be sourced from wastewater as opposed to any potable water. It's about half and half right now, latest reports I read. But so I'm not sure where they're getting that. I don't think there are any violations of state or federal standards here. You know, there's inspectors all over the place on that. I appreciate the concern, but I feel like it's a bit overblown, is what I would say. With respect to electricity, presently in this country, there are roughly 250 data centers that are those which you would count. I'm not talking about all the ones that are installed and operated by a private company, but what we call public data centers. They consume about 5% of the total electricity in the country. Now, this is expected to escalate with this explosion to 2030, 5 years from now. We're talking about 610 data centers, so more than double. Now, these are giant facilities, as you know, and at that point, it is expected that the electricity consumption would balloon to about 12%. The vast majority of the electricity, or the category, I should say, that consumes the most electricity in this country and in the world is air conditioning. It accounts for just under 40% of all electricity consumption. All you got to do is look at your power bill, your electricity bill. In the summer, typically, if your air conditioning is powered by electricity, which I think most of ours around here are, well, yeah, you're going to see your electric bill be higher in the summer and lower in the winter unless you have electric-powered heat. But even then, we don't use that heat, I would generally say, the way we do the air conditioner, right, to achieve comfort in our home environments and in our business environments as well. I mean, my situation, I think, is fairly typical. I've got natural gas-powered heat and electric-powered air conditioning. Man, I like to see that relief on that electric bill. I don't have the level billing, but it goes in half, honestly. So, but that's kind of frames the situation here. The president understands. We understand it here in Mississippi as well. The governor certainly understands with his creation of this Power Up group. And that's all about, let's make sure we got enough electricity. So that ought to be what we focus on, not let's just don't do that. We're not going to have any power. No, let's make sure we got enough power. We can do that. We have the brains and we have the resources to do it. We're coming right back. Stay with us.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
We're rolling. Hit it. Go. Play it.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
All right. Yeah. Well, I must admit, I can't explain any of these thoughts racing through my brain. It's true. Baby, I'm howling for you. All right. There's something wrong with this plot. The actors here have not got a clue. Baby, I'm howling for you.
Back with you in the Element Wealth studio. We appreciate you joining us. So, yeah, this is an evolution, a revolution going on in this country and across the world. And this country is leading the way. And this is a matter of national security, economic security, the future of this country. We cannot cede superiority in artificial intelligence and God forbid, quantum computing to our most ardent foe, and that's China. And they're working overtime to achieve said superiority. So just sitting back and saying we can't do that, and then you think everything just stays the same. No, it doesn't. It is changing. It's constantly changing. In fact, the only constant in our world is change. Now, some things don't need a change, like the Cracker Barrel logo. That was stupid. This is a little different situation here. We're not talking about Cracker Barrel logos. We're not talking about Uncle Herschel. We're talking about the ability of our enemy to gain superiority over us in technology that could literally take the country down. And I'm not exaggerating here. And I'm not talking about just attacking the power grid, which you hear about all the time, and folks express concerns, which is a legitimate concern. It goes way beyond that, man. Way beyond that. So I caught this, Rhino, something you've talked about many times, and that's coal. So I caught a heat map graphic that shows use of coal between 2015 2024 to generate mainly electricity by country. So because of the climate change nuts in this country, a decrease of 100 gigawatts of coal-fired electricity generating capacity in the United States. Now, just for some perspective, folks, 100 gigawatts, Entergy's footprint in the state of Mississippi, which is about half the total electricity usage, is 3 gigawatts. We're talking 100 gigawatts of coal-fired electricity that's been taken off the line, off the grid. China, on the other hand, you bring this up all the time, have added 300 gigawatts. So there's a 400 gigawatt separation between where we were and where we are today over this 10-year period.
But the climate nuts would tell you, no, you have to do without, and we're going to ignore China.
Correct. And I feel like that's the same message we're hearing from these objections and opponents of this data center and artificial intelligence explosion. Oh, well, if it's going to do this, that, and the other, we just got to do that. And that's not to say that I'm okay with having problems with oversubscription of electricity or water or pollution or any of those other drawbacks. No, not whatsoever. I'm saying let's solve those problems. I believe that's what the president's saying. Let's solve those problems. This is critical. This is essential to our survival as a society, as a nation. Let's fix that problem. And the good news is, every day it seems like, Rhino, I'm seeing another announcement about some investment in nuclear. You're seeing more deals being cut every day. We've talked about that. We've always been fans of that, supporters of that for years. And
now you've got people with deep pockets that want it to happen yesterday.
Exactly.
Which means you're going to see more money put into the research and development, the innovation required to have large quantities of mass-produced small modular reactors coming on the grid sooner rather than later.
And you know what I think will occur as a result of that? Not only will many of those be installed and dedicated to power these big data centers, they'll produce more power than they consume, and they'll send it to the grid, right? That's exactly what's going to happen. And these things, in general, about as big as a school bus is typically how they describe them. And so you'll have a lot behind the grid powering these facilities. Don't be surprised to see that also powering manufacturing plants and other facilities that consume lots of electricity.
I mean, eventually it'll get to the point where if a natural disaster occurs, the Army Corps of Engineers will clear a path wide enough for an 18-wheeler to get to wherever they need to be, and they can set up and power the whole area.
Totally agree. That's where we're headed. I agree. So, again, human innovation is the way to solve these problems. You have a problem that's facing humanity. In this case, it's our country facing the threat of China, who wants to take us over, who wants to fly the sickle and hammer above us, right? That's their goal. That's their stated objective. There's no secret about that. Well, it's technology that's going to give them the edge to do that. We got to protect against that. So just stopping everything and putting it on hold, they're just licking their chops at that, man.
I mean, if they weren't an enemy, why would we have all these stories of Chinese nationals coming to the U.S. with biological agents that would attack crops, or Chinese nationals worming their way into getting clearance and sending information and trade secrets back to China?
And
it'd be one thing if you had that's once or twice a year. No, it's once or twice a month at this point.
That's totally true. And so, that's great. You're sort of validating my point that there are all kinds of ways of causing harm to this country. Now we're seeing even them getting involved in our voting process. I've thought for some time that Where we're vulnerable with respect to election integrity is not so much voting machines and all the other misconduct that occurs around voting. Yeah, those are problems, no doubt, that need to be addressed. But what always has stoked fear in me is our enemy's ability to infiltrate our county systems who conduct elections, where the voter rolls are stored. And they compromise those systems. Hey, we can't get to the systems, we can't have an election. That's what bothers me, that we're so vulnerable there. I've brought this example up numerous times, and it's worth pointing out again. Hinds County. How long were they down? 4-6 weeks. You couldn't file a lawsuit. You couldn't conduct business with the county. Little bit offline, but for the most part, they rely heavily on those computer systems for county business, including conducting elections. If the election had been held during the time that their systems were under ransom, we couldn't have had elections in Hinds County. Now, some people may say, oh, that'd be okay. They don't vote. But it's not like that's just targeted to a county based on political partisanship. I think that's the goal. The goal is we're going to shut your voting systems down, America. Take that. Your elections are canceled. Think of the chaos that would tip us into in this country. That's what I'm worried about. I think the last I checked, there are like 3,300 counties, something like that. And they all have, honestly, systems that are poorly safeguarded, poorly protected. And that's a full-time job. That's literally a 7/24 job, a combination of people and technology to protect critical data, especially if you're a high-value target. And in this case, I'm saying they would be. But
if China were to beat us to the punch on quantum computing, no amount of manpower or technology that we would have at that point could be thrown at the problem to keep them out.
Totally correct, which is why it is imperative that we remain superior and continue to maintain our superiority in quantum computing, and that requires AI, and that requires data centers and all the like. So that's why I say it's a national security issue. These other drawbacks and negatives that folks are pointing out, yeah, they need to be addressed. There's no doubt about it. But again, I maintain we have the technology, we have the resources, we have the know-how, we have the assets to do it. So let's do it. There's nothing keeping us from producing the requisite power to take care of the needs of these data centers. We have that, so let's do it. Not just say, hey, we can't do that, and then China's building coal plants like crazy. Okay, America, we're one-upping you here. That's the concern we need to be worried about. Coming right back in the Element Well studio at 12:05 today, it's Dr. Jennifer Bryan. She's got a new AI tool for governance in the healthcare sector. Stay with us.
Is everybody ready?
I'm ready. Ready here.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. Vintage B.J. Thomas there bumping us into this segment. So this is certainly an explosion that is engulfing our country. That is this explosion in data centers. It's just fascinating to me to think back when you just didn't see a whole lot of use for it because there weren't a lot of IT applications really that can utilize those. You go to Amazon's website, Amazon Web Services specifically, and you look at their what's called a services catalog at all the various cloud services they offer. I mean, it'll hurt your head. It's a long list by category, by industry, all sorts of highly specialized type, purpose-built services, and those are all sold on a subscription basis, on an as-a-service basis. And it's fascinating. So what's happened is the artificial intelligence really coming onto the scene 3 years ago, I guess, when ChatGPT was introduced. It sort of made it a household name. Before that, it was understood, it was known about, it was being used, but it hadn't been consumerized yet the way ChatGPT did. And of course, there are other similar GPTs, generative pre-trained transformers. That's what that stands for. That's some fancy words there for just you tell me what you want to do and I'll do it for you kind of deal. But that's what they're called.
Well, I mean, for the longest time, AI use cases were reserved simply for machine learning.
Yeah.
Where you could walk a machine through, all right, this is as far as you can go this way, and this way. Now through AI, because you know your parameters, you can move around without us having to do the complex calculations to find, okay, this is the curve we need on the graph to get you to go to that point.
Yeah, that's right. And so that's, again, the consumerization of it, right? You've got those tools in your phone, in the palm of your hand. We didn't have that. You're right. It's kind of reserved
Wasn't a whole lot of need for the average person to make a robot arm travel in 3 dimensions. And
yeah. And a lot of also machine-to-machine communications as well. I actually believe that in the future, not next year, 20 years maybe, that most commercial air travel will be conducted through machine-to-machine communication, that the aircraft will be flown by onboard AI, and air traffic control will be conducted by AI. And that there'll be humans in the background just in case something happens to take over. I think in the case of a commercial aircraft, they'll be on the ground, be like a drone. Remote control. Imagine that. I think we'll get there. And with respect to air traffic control, same thing. And honestly, machines can analyze, process, react, make decisions faster than humans can. It's based on what humans have created. You point that out all the time. They haven't created it, but they're very repetitive. That's the difference. It's not like, well, I got distracted and messed up, next thing you know, crash. Machines don't do that. Now, unless somebody compromises them, that's what they're vulnerable to. But I think we may get there. It's just for one thing, we have a shortage. We don't have enough pilots. We're not producing any. Used to come out of the military. A lot of those old folks are, especially from the Vietnam era, they're retired out now. We're not producing them the way we used to. And the same thing with air traffic controllers.
Well, it's just a ratio game at that point. I mean, you look at the percentage of the population that went to war in World War II and what percentage of them became pilots. And then next major war was Vietnam. You had Korea in the middle there, but you look at the Vietnam generation, what percentage of the population went to Vietnam and learned to be a pilot? And then you look at the global war on terror, it's a much smaller percentage of the overall population that went to war.
Totally true.
And out of that, you have a certain percentage that became pilots. But as a total percentage of the population, those military-trained pilots are much smaller percentage of the population than they have been.
And plus, the demand is increased. We travel more. I think there was a lot of concern that with the COVID stuff, you remember that, well, we'll never get back to that level of air travel that we had pre-COVID because folks have gotten accustomed to web conferencing, Zoom meetings, and so forth. Turns out that's not the case. Air travel has not only returned, it is actually increased over what it was.
And all the people that complain about the air travel causing global warming didn't seem to take their own medicine. Because they certainly don't zoom into their big fancy meetings where they talk about changing the world. No, they got to fly in. They got to have their whole soiree.
Yeah, you're right about that. And I maintain still, though, there's no substitute, is there, Rhino, for those face-to-face meetings? I've done tons of them. I've done tons of them remotely. It's like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm going to get my butt on an airplane if I have to spend money. I want to see you face to face.
But if you're an elitist complaining about the average person taking a flight to vacation and how that's damaging the environment, and you can't sit your butt at home and Skype into the big climate change conference, then you're just a hypocrite.
I completely agree. And that's always been fodder, has it not, for those that have said, wait, look at them all getting off their private planes into their stretch limos, driving to their expensive hotels to talk about climate change. What a joke. What a total
like Pete
joke.
Buttigieg getting out of the SUV a couple blocks away from the venue and getting on a bike to ride the bike up to it.
Yeah. What a complete
He's not the
joke.
only one. He's just the first one that came to mind.
You probably saw Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker pushing back on the president who is hinted at the idea of sending in National Guard troops into Chicago, much of which is a war zone. And he says, oh, no, everything's great here. Sure, it was like 6 o'clock in the morning, and what did he say? Look at the folks enjoying this beautiful day and the lake and the this and the that and sitting on their front porch at the brownstones. A lot of them have, little front porches with rocking chairs. Sure, you've got this entourage of law enforcement surrounding you. You're in the better patrolled, safer area of town. Why don't you go down to the south side, down to Cabrini Greens, which is like a zoo down there, and do the same without law enforcement?
It'd still probably be quiet at 6 a.m.
You're probably right. Still, though, what a joke. Are you just blind? Like there's no problem here whatsoever in Chicago? It's constant. And you know what the governor said, not the governor, the mayor of Chicago, don't send them here, President Trump. We don't have a problem with enforcing our law and just needing more law enforcement on the streets to deter crime, because their mere presence is what deters it. That's exactly what happened in Washington. It's not like they're out in the streets having gunfights with criminals in D.C. No, it's just they're there. The criminals say, yeah, I'm not too crazy about what I was thinking about doing when there's nobody for miles around. And by the way, even if I do something and I get arrested, I'm going to get released immediately with cashless bail and all the other nonsense they've implemented. And so it's just a deterrent. That's all it is. And it's been an effective deterrent. But the mayor of Chicago says it's affordable housing. It's the lack of affordable housing. That's why they're committing crime. That's why they're killing people. Once again, justifying, sanctioning, normalizing brutal, horrific crime and politicizing it. It's sickening. It's disgusting. You want help? There are people that will help you. There's no doubt. You don't have to kill them, but they're basically saying, "Oh yeah, you got to do that to make a statement." Right? It's the United Healthcare assassination. It's the president, and there have been others whose lives have been attempted on because somebody's just mad. And the left in this country has said, "Yeah, that's okay. You can do that." We've seen polls that have borne that out, right? You have to get what you want, have to kill somebody, that'd be okay. You can't even comprehend it. The moral decay that's occurred in the country. And I say it still all goes back to the dissolution of the nuclear family, because these are kids growing up with this sort of attitude and sentiment that have just not been guided. They just taught the plain old difference between right and wrong and to respect human life. That's just missing in our society. So what's going on here?
Well, that, and if you got an honest truth from a Democrat, if you're a Democrat under the age of 45 and you flip a coin, you've got a 50-50 chance of being mentally deranged.
And I would say that's a description of these well-clothed, coiffed, kept, made-up elitists that surround this nutcase Zoran Mandami, the communist in New York. that, of course, are opposing the very system that enabled them to have all those niceties of life. The governor says that he'd like to consolidate some school districts. We're going to talk about that on the other side. Stay with us.
Polyumpa, Mississippi.
It's so awesome!
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Come on, let's get on with the show!
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It is Middays. We're coming at you from the Element Well studio. So just to kind of wrap up this topic, I appreciate all the concerns folks have about how these major investments in the state of Mississippi, constructing these data centers, might affect them as consumers of power and water and even possible pollution. But I think I just don't see that even being worth talking about. These are not buildings that have smokestacks on the top of them. They're not burning anything. They're not incinerating anything. They just don't produce any sort of emissions or waste here. I get the short time of the year they use water, but I think I've explained that. And you can, by the way, you don't have to take my word for it. You go out to any of these major data center operators, the household names of Microsoft and Amazon and Meta and Google and Oracle, IBM, and you'll find that they all have stated goals of being neutral, if not net positive, with respect to electricity and water. And these are companies that are pretty serious about that and have the means to achieve that. This is not just lip service. And they track it, and you can see it.
And that's partially in response to a litigious society, because it's really hard to get it going if you're fighting lawsuits from the climate crazies.
Totally true. That's completely true. So that's what's going on there. I couldn't be more excited about Mississippi playing such a huge role in this explosion, this transformation that's occurring. I'm excited about the fact that our governor gets this and our president as well is supportive. Remember his trip to the Middle East? He was pressing Qatar, who had announced they were going to invest heavily in development of AI, and of course that requires data centers. Hey, Qatar, how about spending some money in the United States? Okay, Mr. President, how about $500 billion? Seriously, that's literally what happened. And so he understands that we have land, we have power, we have water, but most importantly, we have know-how. Know-how. And that know-how will be applied to addressing these issues. I have faith in humanity to solve human problems. If we can't, we might as well just shut down everything today, because the problem isn't going to go away.
Which is why I wouldn't be surprised if all of a sudden you have more and more people with French accents in the United States.
Yeah.
If there's a big push for building more nuclear power, because they've been the world leader for a couple decades now.
Totally true.
In their proficiency and efficiency of getting nuclear plants up and running.
Well, you could say again that a lot of these challenges that we're now facing are because of the nutcases on the left in this country. That if they had their way, I mean, we wouldn't have air conditioning. We wouldn't have anything, right? We're just no electricity, because they're not happy when we move from coal to natural gas. Well, they're not happy about it. They don't want anything. Was it AOC that said we got to stop flying airplanes and eating meat? Right? We've had a lot of them say because cattle emit methane gas or all this kind of nonsense. It's like, well, what do we want to live for? To live, to just turn the clock back centuries. It's really what they want to do. And some have even said, we don't want any people on the planet, right? Just to end human inhabitation of the earth. And that's how crazy it is. And politicians have gotten political gain out of supporting that garbage.
Al Gore almost won a presidency.
That's absolutely true. Because of that, he wasn't even remotely close to being right about anything, any aspect of that.
Yeah, we're several years past when the ice caps were supposed to have been melted, according to him, and the inconvenient truth.
He basically made a political career out of fear-mongering about the climate and had no freaking idea what he was talking about. So, again, I'm optimistic. We're gonna address these issues. We're going to be way better off for doing so in so many respects. It's a good thing, folks. The governor, I talked about this before we went to break. He's now jumping on the bandwagon. He wants to consolidate 20 to 50 of the 138 school districts in the state. This is a topic we've talked about extensively on the show. You know, there was kind of a false start on that from the House last year. They were going to commission a committee to go study that and make some recommendations. Couldn't even get that off the ground. This is popular in some squares and not popular in others. I think that in the state of Mississippi, there are opportunities to do so that I think would be cost efficient. But I think it's got to be done methodically and thoughtfully, like anything that you're doing like this. But there's definitely opportunities. For sure, to achieve some scale, some economies of scale that we've been talking about.
Shh, that's a dirty word.
It seems like it. And the governor said, I'm not personally married to a number. I'm not married to 82 school districts. I'm quoting him here because the reality is that Issaquah County and Rankin County are both very different in their size and scope. I totally agree. Makes sense. That's why I say methodically, thoughtfully, responsibly. Stepping aside for a break, Fox News, SuperTalk News, then Dr. Jennifer Bryan.
Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's MidDays. We're coming at you live from the Element Wealth Studio on this
Hump Day.
It's our pleasure to welcome now Dr. Jennifer Bryan, Mississippi State Medical Association Board of Trustees, the immediate past president, but today as the founder and owner of Quiet Signal Technologies. How about that? Dr. Bryan, good to have you in the studio. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you. Always glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So you and I visited a little bit. You were on with Mary a couple of weeks ago, the Mary Weed Show, discussing this project you've got going on that's kind of adjunct to your full-time job as a physician. And it's some new artificial intelligence-powered technology for the healthcare industry, right?
Yeah, somewhat. Yeah, that. It's actually there is some AI component, but it is more of a governance platform.
Okay.
So it's a software type layer that integrates with existing clinical AI. Think of it as a safety wraparound about what's in the clinical space.
Yeah.
We know that there are AI generated errors, and so this is the safety filter of what we are seeing at the bedside that needs to be there to keep patients safe and also to keep physicians and other providers at decreased risk and for liability.
Okay. So what was the catalyst for this idea?
Well, for one thing, really getting into leadership at the American Medical Association there on the Council on Science and Public Health now has opened my eyes to the systemic public health effects as AI kind of goes unleashed around the country in our records. And it's exciting. And you know that, like yourself, I'm overextended and busy with family and professional stuff and advocacy. So I leaned in really early with tech and AI thinking this is a way that can help me. And it has. So my patients are used to the AI in the exam room helping with progress notes. But very soon I realized there was a lot more AI in my life, like inside of the record itself, suggesting things, coding, and is coming up next, and order set suggestions. And so as that happened, I began to see serious illnesses being suggested that the patient absolutely did not have. In some, not my record, but others, they can directly insert those things. And in medicine these days, you are paid for how complex a patient is. So I began to get a little nervous about, I don't want cancer in the chart the patient doesn't have, or these other serious illnesses. Where is this coming from? And it all boils down to, in my perspective, algorithmic things, and then the fact that AI inherently will never be perfect. It's going to make errors just like humans do.
Sure.
And so what's our process for filtering that out at the bedside? Not after the visit's over and I've signed something that's wrong and polluted the record for other people downstream. But how can we make this accurate, and also that patients aren't seeing alarming things at home, because that was happening too, about where did this come from? And so that's all I need.
Okay. So would the tool then, Dr. Bryan, would it integrate with just the off-the-shelf clinical systems that are in use today?
Yeah. So I began to hear and see the need from doctors around the country. And then in my own practice at the bedside, so I filed intellectual property back in April, and we're prosecuting those kind of on a rush track with USPTO about the logic. And it can take various forms, but the simplest one would be, it is vendor agnostic. So again, this is a high-level governance platform that would integrate.
Okay.
And we're excited about it, getting a lot of interest.
Well, the term governance, I've heard mentioned more vis-a-vis software and technology in general in the last couple of months than I think I did in my entire IT career before that.
Yeah.
And I think that's largely because we are creating all these tools that have the ability to some extent replicate human thought and decision making, and there's always a concern about that. And so this need for framing that technology with some sort of governance and orchestration has become way more important than ever.
Well, like we were talking about off air, I am so pro-tech. Like, it can definitely help us. But how we responsibly integrate it is really important.
Yeah.
And back in April, when I did file the intellectual property and start the company, at that time, it was more about, this is the next bell. Look what we can do. We can save you time. And we were getting way ahead of ourselves. And I was seeing such risk that I thought, we're not talking about governance. So actually, you know, my other hat is on the AMA delegation from Mississippi. We worked on an AI governance resolution that we got unanimous passage by like over 700 doctors there at the AMA calling for these principles that are laid out in this product. So it's all about transparency. Who said what? Did the AI say it or did the human? And if the AI said it, how confident were they? Where'd they get it from? Reddit or from Mayo Clinic's note last month? So it's understanding where things are coming from and being able to parse out and decrease the rate. And then if the AI doesn't know, it's still going to default to the human and not make stuff up, because that's happening.
That is happening. That's absolutely happening. And the thing that, of course, as you know, the technology is incapable of is fundamental, innate human compassion.
Absolutely.
Can't do that.
No, and I think Jennifer's opinion is that when ChatGPT and OpenAI and Claude and Opus and all of them came out, people began to think, this thing is brilliant. It's so much smarter than me. It's nearly perfect, right? And they were using it, and you began to see the flaws. And medicine and other careers, this is cross-domain, kind of made the same mistake. Like, let's roll with it, right? And it's never going to be perfect. I know Samsung AI Center in Warsaw just put out a paper about mathematically it's impossible to get to perfection with AI, no matter how good the model is. Humans also have a built-in error rate.
Sure.
So it's never been AI or human. It's how we integrate together to get the best services to our patients or whatever our career is in. You know, whether you're doing finance or aerospace or whatever you're doing, you can't. Neither one is infallible. Yeah,
that's totally true. Agree with that. But the good news is, I think that folks that are creating and developing this technology understand that, and they're including guardrails around those tools. But there's a whole new industry of governance and orchestration that's spawning around this.
I think there is limited understanding in some of the categories, but we've got a lot of room to grow in medicine.
Yeah.
And I can't speak to other fields. In medicine, we do have some excellent tech companies that are out there from the top thinking, this will work good. The doctor will like this. This is going to be great. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what makes this approach unique is, as you know, like I'm a physician. That's my day job. But also, a policy author and advocate and all this. I'm an end user of the software. Mm-hmm. And so inherent things that they really didn't expect, I'm picking up on and thinking, I don't want that risk on me. A good example is a patient I saw today last month that came in after having they fainted, I think. Yep. There was no seizure. The computer says this patient has epilepsy. I said, no, they don't. Go away. A month later, they come back in. Does this patient have epilepsy? There's multiple places where you can get tripped up, and if somebody's busy, and in January, there's 25 of those codes because it resets every January, and you've got to figure out, do they really have it? No, they don't. And somebody's 85 years old and not a good historian. So our charts are getting polluted very quickly.
Okay.
And we're getting paid by the government for that. I think that's the important piece is how complex a patient is how we are paid these days, not just how much an office visit costs. So to me, I began to see the numbers, and I think we're talking about in the billions of dollars that are paid for diagnoses patients don't have, and then plans that got hallucinated off of a diagnosis they didn't have. So we got to fix it.
Yeah. What I call over-doctoring.
There you go.
So,
it's over something.
Yeah, and that obviously costs money. There's an economic aspect of that. So, somewhat related, but this story caught my attention that released yesterday. And there's a 16-year-old who died of a suicide. And it turns out, after doing some research, that the ChatGPT, that AI tool, actually advised the child on how to take his life.
Right.
So that's an example of
that. It's a tragedy.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, too, another reason that I got into this was when I first started using generic AI like that a few years ago, it began to say some things to me that I thought, if a paranoid schizophrenic or somebody with mental illness is listening to this, we're going to have some real mental health crises on our hands. And that is what we're seeing. And so I think the calls for governance are organic. Not only in medicine, but that's what that family is saying, right? So we don't want to over-regulate and over-stifle because the innovation is amazing. But that's what Quiet Signal Technologies is about.
I got you. Well, if you stay around, we can dig into that a little bit more and find out kind of what your roadmap is going from here.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We got Dr. Jennifer Bryan in the Element Well studio. We're stepping aside, coming right back.
Patriotism is a lie.
Check it out. Let's do this. The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's get on with it.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Oh, yeah, we got a little fog hat there. I know this is crazy, but when I was in high school, I put that LP on, and I had a pretty powerful sound system. I'd sleep to that.
Really?
I'd go to sleep to that. I'd crank up fog hat, like real loud. And I was on the other end of the house where my parents couldn't hear it, but it put me to sleep.
I fell asleep to music, but nothing quite that rocking.
Oh, that and the 2-hour roundabout by Yes, right, Rhino? That's like the whole side and then some. But we're in the Element Well studio with Dr. Jennifer Bryan. All right, so this company you've created, Quiet Signal Technology.
That's right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Where are you in the development, the piloting of the solution, and kind of what's the roadmap from here on out?
Absolutely. Thank you. So we have a legal team based out of Chicago with Hush Blackwell, who's helping us prosecute the patents. And so they're kind of handling the intellectual property side, and are working with a major academic university on, researching the outcomes and, the money savings and the proof and that it's needed. And also working with a national AI platform right now, have significant inbound interest both from payers as well as health systems that are looking to make things safer. An interesting stat is 88% of health systems in the United States of America do not have appropriate governance systems in place at this time. So got that going on. We do have, the demo and the minimal viable product as well as the code for the overall subject that's been fleshed out and is privacy and, compatible, all of those things that it needs to be. I have done an audit on my own panel of patients, about 1,250 or so patients, and really seen the need. And so initially kind of starting a pilot there that I plan to publish on basically how much I was manually having to do versus what can be caught and risk averted and the cost savings. These systems can be complex, the governance, but our projections show that for a system to implement something like this, per doctor or other clinical care provider, you would expect annually $3,000, $4,000 cost to kind of integrate into your existing system, but the return on investment is somewhere around $10,000 to $15,000 annually. So it really pays for itself, and you don't deal with as many clawbacks. You don't deal with the risk of fraudulent things entering your chart. And so there's a lot of benefit here. As you said, governance is heating up. And we think physicians need to be in that space, and that the bedside physician understands the personal risk that's coming at them and to the patient. So we're excited about it. Got a lot of academic and industry interest, honestly, more than I can handle as a full-time family physician. So building out the team now to help with some of that overflow. And actually had some interest from HHS on hearing about it. So it's taken off, and we're real excited about it.
So when you present the solution to physicians, what kind of reaction do you get?
They know. They're like, I think they are hoping that somebody somewhere is going to fix it.
Yeah.
And somebody somewhere is giving them the next bell and whistle about, well, we can also do orders for you, and we can also tee up refills for you, and that's great. It's going to have some errors in it too baked in, although hopefully low. But we need to start back at the beginning, which is inherently right now our charts are getting riddled with inaccurate information because, as we said during the break, if a cancer diagnosis slips in, then the ambient, which is the scribe you have in the room that is typing kind of as you have a very natural interaction with your patient, which is what we love. You get back to talking to your patient.
Yep.
The ambient will then make up a plan that did not happen based off of a code that was not diagnosed if it slips in.
Interesting.
It is. And by the time we connect with systems around the country with interoperability, you can see how this scales quickly to be a dangerous problem and an expensive one at that for every other system that pulls in diagnoses the patient doesn't carry.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. So this whole idea of these conversations you have and then what gets included and then it's acted upon, I mean, I'm just curious, how do you include a cancer diagnosis when there wasn't one?
Right.
I mean, what happens there?
Right.
Where's the gap?
So inside of all of the major electronic health record systems, there is its own AI. So the patient may see my AI on my phone that I say, this is type my progress notes. And that AI pattern matches and says this patient may have X, Y, and Z.
I see.
Okay.
Based on just conditions, symptoms, and so forth.
And hey, that's great, because if I'm a doc, I do want to get paid for the complexity of the patient.
Sure.
But I don't want all the extra stuff they don't have. And so a lot of times it is very, very wrong, and they are very serious illnesses that are slipping in. And so that is the crux of where I began to see this is a problem. I think that the disclaimers start at the top all the way down that say, hey, we know this is not accurate. Make sure you check it. We cast a pretty wide net because we want to capture the complexity, but make sure your doctors look, or your nurse practitioners, or whoever it is. That takes time. And you turn to the patient, and if you were my patient, I'll say, Gerard, this says you've got metastatic cancer to your bone. I don't remember you having cancer. You would say no, but then you would look at me like, do you not even know me? It erodes trust in me and the record. So it's very messed up, and I don't like the disclaimer. Like, it needs to be safer from the start.
Okay. I got you.
Yeah, not auditing afterwards. We've got audit products that tack on after I've signed a claim that's not right.
Yeah.
So bedside governance, I also say a part of this is credentialed scope. Have we thought about an AI can be a ventriloquist puppet. It can be anybody you want it to be, an impersonator, a family doctor, a neurosurgeon, anybody outside of the room.
Sure.
Right? And so I think it's important that it acts as what I have privileges for, what I am credentialed for, and what the dermatologist PA is credentialed for. Because when we start getting all these order suggestions, I don't want them handing me an order for chemotherapy for cancer, right? And so that's where we're getting into, is if AI can be everybody and order everything, let's get back to basics. I want a really smart assistant. Make sure I'm not missing anything. Don't give me something I've got to spend 30 minutes tracking down.
That makes sense.
Yeah. It's just basics.
Okay. So it is in fact putting a bit of a governor on the tool, on the technology, hence the word governance.
Yes.
Yeah. And that I shared with you on the break when I was at the AI conference a couple of weeks ago. There were 400 exhibitors, which was just mind-boggling. And I shared with Representative Hank Zuber, who was there with me. Yeah. I said, think about this. The vast majority of these companies didn't exist 3 years ago. These are all brand new, like your company.
Right,
it's brand new. So, which is great. I mean, we're a whole new industry, lots of new opportunity. And that he had a hard time kind of comprehending that. Those of us in the industry were accustomed to that constant turnover. And I said, look, half of them may not make it, but guess what? There'll be twice as many that'll sprout up between now and that time period.
They will.
It's ultimate capitalism.
We have applied, I mean, obviously research support, we're looking there, and then have applied, for funding through some venture capital organizations and stuff. But if there are people that are listening and are interested in it, certainly we are raising funding for this first round, and in development and piloting. As I said, we've got significant interest in that. We have a fledgling website that is growing and being revamped. It's quietsignaltech.com, but it's Quiet Signal Technologies. The product is Shimmer Frame. It's a trademark term on the package, which is clinical AI governance. Okay. And it's about all the principles that Mississippi took to the American Medical Association in June and passed unanimously, and that's what we're all about.
Well, you're probably aware that I've been appointed to serve on the state's AI regulatory task force. Our first meeting's coming up in about a month, in September. And so we got our work cut out for us, but you and I were talking on the break, and I think we're in perfect harmony here, that we need reasonable guardrails, but we don't want them to be so restrictive and so onerous that it stifles innovation.
Well, and I think it has made my life so much better. I mean, having the AI scribe, I still check every single note and I find errors, and I'm fine with that because it has saved me hours to where I can develop a company.
Sure.
I mean, let's be honest, I didn't have time to do this.
It's a time-saving tool more than anything else.
So it's a growth process, and as an end user, I know I don't want a lot of clicks. I want it to be easy for doctors and patients. It should be seamless. It should be integrated. You shouldn't know it's even there. But we do need a safety filter because there's so much waste. Right? We know there's waste. I mean, there's waste in all these healthcare expenses. I think this is an easy win for a lot of people. I think regulators will be interested in it. They are already calling for these type things. So we're hoping we can make a go of it.
Okay. Well, are you starting to promote across the country within the industry? Or
yes.
What? Yeah.
We are speaking to a couple of Oklahoma and New Jersey medical associations. Really also cool. Speaking to the American Medical Association Women Physicians section in October, and coming soon an announcement at a university and at the Steamposium at the Mississippi Children's Museum.
That is awesome. So sounds like you got lots of events scheduled up.
I'm excited about it and grateful
to present this. And most of all, we're going to keep this in Mississippi, right?
That's it. Okay. That is it. And thank you for having me.
You bet. Dr. Jennifer Bryan, Quiet Signal Technologies. That's her new tool, governance tool for the healthcare industry. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studios.
Okay, is everybody ready?
I'm ready. Ready here.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth studio. We are back with you. Of course, Thomas in Greenwood, I knew he would be really ecstatic about the the governor's announcement of interest in pursuing school district consolidation. I mean, I've always thought that was something we needed to explore and pursue. I would caution, however, that don't expect money to fall out of the sky on this. I think it's a good idea, and I'm glad to see the governor supports it as well, and perhaps we can get some more traction in the legislature in the next session, in the upcoming 26th session. I know there's strong interest in this by the speaker, and also by the Education Committee chairman as well in the House. I don't think there's any question about that. Less interest in the Senate, and that's kind of what we've come to understand. Rob Robertson, of course, in the House that chairs that. And I'll tell you right now, I literally ran into the speaker in the hall in the Capitol one day during the session last year. And he had just exited a meeting where that was discussed, and he shared it with me. He was getting on the elevator, and I was going in the other direction. And I was pleased to hear that. I was a little surprised that at that point that he was able to garner enough interest in the House to pursue it. Turns out it wasn't. At that point, he was pretty excited about it, and I think subsequent to that, what happened was that there was some pushback. Now, a lot of the pushback, which is no surprise, and I've shared this before, comes from those, obviously, who were employed at the district level, at the back office level of the district, because we're not talking about consolidation of schools here. We're talking about districts, which means two boards turn into one, school boards, that when you got these back office apparatus, which includes the superintendent and the assistant superintendents and all the other folks that work in administration outside of the schools that are at the central office that administers a school district. We're talking about instead of having instead of having two districts, each of with, or it could be multiple districts, each of which has its own back office, consolidating those. The idea would be to consolidate that down to one back office. Not necessarily, no plans as part of that strategy to consolidate physical schools. Schools still operate as they are, but rather than having the multiple districts with each of which has its own back office, because there's a significant fixed cost associated with running a district, whether you have 2 schools or 20. There's still a fixed cost, just like there is in business. So the consolidation, the goal would be to achieve some efficiencies and, again, some economies of scale. But I would hesitate to say, oh, yeah, well, we're just gonna consolidate and and drop everything that happens in District A into District B, and we're going to get rid of everybody in District A. That's probably not what would happen. It would be somewhere in the middle of complete elimination of an entire district's back office and doing nothing. So it'd be in the middle of that, I think, is what could be reasonably expected. Nonetheless, though, the fact is we got some super small districts in the state. Yeah, and you're aware of that, Rhino. We got some districts where the total number of students is not as big as a high school in some of the big districts. I don't think I'm off there, honestly.
No.
So, which is crazy when you think about it, because everywhere you got a high school in a district, of course, you've got feeder middle school or schools and elementary school or schools. So when you get into these, and the governor was right, yeah, Issaquah County, which is a very sparsely populated county, is not the same as Rankin County, which is certainly a more densely populated county. So that same formula, same strategy, same model does not work across the board. And that's why, and I agree with the governor here, I don't think it makes sense to just say, oh yeah, one district per county. I don't know that is the correct approach. I think it just makes sense to investigate and analyze each district on its own accord and determine. You got a geographic consideration associated with that as well. Can acquire and make available to its schools, its teachers, its students, all the way down, just like in business. It's comparing a small business with a large one in terms of its access to those kinds of assets and resources and tools. The good news is technology is advanced to where we are making a lot of that available even at the smallest levels, but not across the board perfect. We're not there yet. So achieving scale, that's what I'm trying to say here, avails the entity some more good stuff to use, in this case, to improve the quality of education. I don't think that there's anything hard to understand about that. I know you may claim some of these liberals pushing back don't get this, but in business we get that. I'll just put it that way. I've seen it too many times, and maybe an easy...
Yeah, but business has competition, and competition hurts feelings.
Yeah, you're right. You know what else it does is if you don't figure it out, you don't eat. And when you're protected, which is the problem we have now with these protectionist policies and systems we have that we need to break through, and we have a number of them in our state, in our country even. Let the markets work. But this is just common sense, in my view. This isn't anything complicated or difficult, but hopefully the governor's comments there will stimulate the discussion. I know the speaker's certainly going to be looking at this hard. I don't know about the lieutenant governor. I haven't gotten the feeling that he's on board with this.
Well, he doesn't have to come out with anything public anyway, so just let it die in whatever committee he assigns somebody to kill it in.
The old pocket veto. This is what I will say, folks. If you're a proponent of this, let your representatives and senators know. Because I can assure you, the superintendents, the school boards, other opponents, they're dang sure letting them know. They're blowing them up is what they're doing. I'm shocked when I was shocked when I first observed that, just working with legislators like, yeah, it's superintendent. Like, in the middle of the day here, yeah, they don't want to do this, that, and the other. Like, oh, my gosh. That in itself kind of illustrates a problem, does it not? Man. So that's where we are. I think it's a good thing. And we also should take stock of the fact that it is technology to a great extent that does enable us to effectively accomplish consolidation. We don't need all that we did in the past. We do have lots of tools to run a school system that didn't exist and necessitated perhaps having all these independent districts spread all over the place. Not anymore, though. Not anymore like it used to be. There's something else I want to talk about on the other side of the break, and it will be our final segment, and it involves PERS. I know you guys are tired of that. But the PERS folks are saying stuff that I kind of think illustrates the point of what is fundamentally wrong with PERS. I'll explain on the other side. We're in the Element Well studio, coming right back.
It's so awesome! Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Come on, let's get on with the show!
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Well studio in the final segment here. Rhino, update us on the shooting in Minneapolis, right?
Yeah, there are some details that have come out that you likely won't hear from the worthless liberal talking heads in mainstream media because it doesn't fit their narrative. That we need to put crazy people in padded cells and lock and throw away the key. The shooter, not going to even give them their name because they're a worthless scumbag that deserves to burn in hell, has all kinds of writing over the weapon they supposedly used, including "Kill Donald Trump" written on a magazine, "For the Children" written on another magazine. Obviously a crazy person. They wouldn't be transgender if they weren't. Oh, wait, yeah, they're trans, so that's another reason why you won't hear anybody in mainstream media talking about this. But yeah, now all the details are coming out about the person that shot up the mass in Minneapolis, and for all the hoopla that the mainstream media and the liberal Democrats were getting riled up and ready to spew, you're probably not going to hear a whole lot about this because, well, it's a crazy liberal that did the shooting.
Seems like more of these involve crazy liberals, and it always comes down to this gender ideology crap. Of late now, right? Of course, the left's always looking for the situation where it's a white cop and a black person who they say is being the victim of police brutality. That's the jackpot for the left. This idea, does this not just prove, though, Rhino, that these people...
That we need to quit emboldening crazy people?
Yeah, that
we need to quit playing into their delusions.
Well,
call a spade and say, you're crazy, get help.
Correct. That's where I was going. Rather than, let me get the surgical knife out and start whacking off your genitals. That's the solution, right? That parents are subjecting their children. I get fired up when it's the kids because they're ruining these kids forever. It's unbelievable. No, you need it, as Colonel Sherman T. Potter O'Mash said to Sidney Freeman there, chase the cobwebs out of your brain. That's exactly what needs to happen here. You're not fixing a problem. You're making it worse. Oh, my gosh. So if you're driven because of that to the point where you take the lives of innocent people, well, that proves the point. Speaking of which, and thank you for that update, PERS. You know, I've talked about that a whole bunch. And because it's a big problem in the state of Mississippi. And there was a meeting last week where the legislature, the speaker in particular, was involved. He created this task force, this special committee, and they're talking about a dedicated source of revenue to help shore up PERS's finances. But I've seen a lot of people say, well, the problem with PERS is public sector entities. You see this mainly at the municipal level and to some extent at the county level. Well, they're hiring subcontractors, right, instead of full-time employees, and they are not required to contribute to the public employees' retirement system because they're not full-time employees. Of course, they don't draw any benefits out. And so are they not illustrating the point I've made so many times that doesn't seem to sink in, which is, You're not funding your own retirement here. You're paying in to be a member. That's why they call you a member. It's not your personal account sitting out there with your money in it waiting for you to retire. If that were the case, you wouldn't get nearly as much out as you do. So that you see where I'm going here. I'm trying to illustrate the point that there's not an account with your name on it out there. It's what's your salary and how many years did you work? That's all that matters. Not what you paid in. You're paying in, and you proved it by complaining about the subcontractors. You're right. We need more full-time employees paying in to pay your benefits. They're making the point. Same deal. So even in as much as I would like to see this school consolidation, because I just think it's the right thing to do, I actually think that the quality of education would improve. As much as anything, I support it for that reason. In the really smaller districts that just don't have a lot of resources, I think this would enable them to avail themselves of resources they currently can't obtain. But keep in mind that whenever we are reducing headcounts in public sector, we're putting more pressure on PERS. It's kind of a double whammy there that we got to be concerned about. On the C Spire text line, why do we have a school superintendent for every school building in elementary and high schools? We don't. I'm not sure where that came from. Some may, but every school in this state does not have a superintendent for the school. That's not the case. So I'm not sure where that came from. And on the C Spire text line, they'll just create more jobs for those that get cut. That's Bill in the Pine Belt. I'm concerned about that as well, Bill, that we're just kind of shifting money. And this, by the way, won't mean that the state's going to reduce the amount it sends to the school districts. That's not going to happen. In fact, that's probably going to keep going up. What it hopefully means is that more of that money makes its way to where it can do the most good. That's to the teachers and in the classrooms and not to the back office. We're out of here today. I'm traveling to New Orleans. The State Policy Network's annual convention's down there. Look forward to that. Back tomorrow. Until then, stay safe and God bless.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.